Okay, so welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're diving into something I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that for most of early human history, technology wasn't actually driven by science.
Mm.
And this kind of goes against, I think, how a lot of us think about it today. You know, we kind of think we got science,
Right.
and then we apply the science and get technology.
Exactly.
But we're going to find out that's not how it happened for a very, very long time. And to do this, we're looking at a bunch of different sources, with the book Science and Technology in World History being kind of our main guide.
Okay.
And yeah, we're gonna be looking at when and how science and technology started to connect in prehistory and with the rise of the first civilizations. So yeah, get ready for some conventional wisdom to be challenged.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about, that very assumption we make today,
Right.
that science is this driver and then technology comes out of it.
Yeah.
But when you look at like the dawn of human history, way, way back, the evidence really points in a totally different direction.
Yeah. I mean, let's start way back. Like Paleolithic era, we're talking stone tools,
Yeah.
basic stone tools for hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
For millions of years even.
For survival.
Yeah. I mean, this is survival. You got to get food. You got to protect yourself.
Exactly.
And these tools, they changed, right? They evolved over time. They got more complex. They got more effective. But was that because people were like, oh, let's do some experiments and figure this out.
Yeah.
Let's run some scientific, method on this and improve our tools.
Right.
It seems like our source is saying, no, not really.
Yeah.
There's maybe a little bit of a possible exception with some of the lunar observations that are found like in late Paleolithic,
right.
like engraved on bones, things like that, like the Gonsi mammoth tusk. But really, it seems like it was mostly just know-how,
Yeah.
practical knowledge passed down through the generations.
Yeah, I think that's the really key distinction here.
Okay.
It was about experiential learning,
Okay.
understanding how materials worked, how to shape them.
Yeah.
Through like direct interaction with them,
Right.
not really through like a detached scientific process. So it was this practical need to survive
Right.
that was really fueling that early technology.
Right. Okay. So then we move into the Neolithic,
Right.
And things start to change a little bit, right?
Yeah. Things start to change. We get the Neolithic Revolution.
We get farming, we get settled life. People are staying put.
Exactly.
We get all these new technology, textiles, pottery, polished stone tools. Agriculture, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these things are popping up independently all over the world, right?
Yeah, all over the globe.
It's not like one group figured it out and then everybody else copied. It's like people are coming up with these things.
Independent.
Yeah, on their own.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the book argues that it's still not really science.
Yeah.
That's driving this.
Yeah.
It's not like suddenly everybody's got,
their lab coats on.
Yeah, their lab coats on. Yeah, and they're like, testing hypotheses.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing, double-blind studies and all this. It's not like that at all.
It's still very much grounded in that practical need.
So pottery, for example, arises out of a need for storage. They've got this food. Now they need to store it.
Yeah, they're producing more than they need at the moment.
Yeah.
So you need ways to store it, to keep it safe, to preserve it.
Right.
And that's where, something like pottery comes in.
Right.
It's craft-based knowledge, like we talked about with fire making.
Okay.
Just figuring things out through experimentation and experience.
Okay, so then we're left with this question of like, okay, well, when do we start seeing systematic knowledge in their lab influencing technology? When does that happen?
That's the big question. When do these two worlds start to collide? Yeah,
and this is where I think things get really interesting with them, because when we look at the Neolithics, we actually start finding some pretty clear evidence of the systematic observation of the heavens.
Okay.
And of course, the most famous example of this is Stonehenge, right?
Huge monument.
This huge monument aligned with these, celestial events.
The solstices, the equinoxes.
The equinoxes.
Yeah.
And it seems like it served as like a seasonal calendar.
Yeah, a way to track the year.
Right. And I mean, think about the sheer scale of this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And the knowledge that they must have had of the movements of the sun and the moon.
It's incredible.
Be able to do something like that. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And so our source calls this science in prehistory.
Okay.
And it's this idea that they were making systematic observations.
Right.
They were, tracking these things. But it wasn't necessarily abstract theoretical science in the way that we think about it today.
Not in the modern sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really leading to new technologies, except for, these kinds of structure.
Right,
And
exactly.
these big monuments.
It's a very specific type of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just Stonehenge, by the way. I mean, our source mentions other examples, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Moai platforms on Easter Island.
Right.
Also seem to have astronomical orientations.
Yeah. Very deliberate placements.
Yeah. So this is happening in different places around the world.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So then let's move forward a little bit,
Okay.
Get the urban revolution.
Right.
And we start seeing the rise of the first civilizations.
Yeah, we're talking Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China.
Mesoamerica.
Yeah.
South America.
All these different centers of early civilization.
Yeah, and all of these places relied on agriculture.
Right.
That was like the basis of their society.
Absolutely the foundation.
But it was intensified agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking irrigation.
Exactly.
We're talking, these big public works projects.
Yeah, massive hydraulic systems
Yeah.
to control water.
And this is all engineering.
Absolutely. I mean, these are engineering marvels.
I mean, these were huge undertakings that allowed these civilizations to flourish.
Right, to support these large populations in these centralized states.
Exactly, yeah. And around this time, we also start seeing the development of writing and math. But again, it seems like it was mostly for practical reasons.
Yeah, very much focused on the needs of the state.
Yeah.
So record-keeping administration.
Keeping track of taxes.
Yeah.
Economic transactions.
Yeah, trade, all of that.
And the book gives these great examples like Mesopotamian invoices.
Right.
And Egyptian land surveys.
Yeah, just very practical applications.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like a lot of the early scientific knowledge was basically just lists.
Yeah, lists of observations, lists of materials.
Yeah, it wasn't really, connected together into this
right.
grand theoretical framework.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we've gone from, the Stone Age to the rise of civilizations.
Right.
It's been a long journey.
But I think what's really interesting is that the big takeaway here is that for thousands and thousands of years.
Millennia.
Yeah. Technology and formal science.
Right.
Basically evolved on their own.
Yeah, they were separate domains for the most part.
And this idea that we have today, this applied science model, it's actually a pretty recent development.
Relatively speaking, yeah. In human history, it's a very recent phenomenon.
Yeah, so it's not that, the ancients weren't smart.
Oh, absolutely.
They weren't, capable of innovation.
They were incredibly innovative.
Yeah. I mean, look at the pyramids.
Exactly.
Look at Stonehenge. Look at all this amazing stuff.
Incredible feats of engineering.
Yeah, it's just that they were doing it in a different way.
In a different way than we do it today.
Yeah. And I think that's really fascinating.
It is.
So just to kind of sum up, we're seeing that technological progress for most of human history really stemmed from trying to solve immediate problems through practical innovation.
Practical solutions to practical problems.
Yeah. And that the systematic observation that we do start seeing emerging was often tied to those practical needs.
Right.
Like predicting the Nile flood.
Exactly.
So they could plant their crops at the right time.
Right.
Or to, the needs of those early states.
Yeah, the needs of the rulers to maintain order.
Right.
To manage resources.
Yeah, it's really quite a shift in perspective to think about, how much ingenuity and how much advancement came out of just necessity and observation.
Yeah, just paying attention to the world around them.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to make it work for them.
Yeah, long before we had, formal scientific methods.
Yeah, the scientific revolution.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for you, the listener out there, I want you to think about this.
Okay.
How do you think that these fundamental human needs and the way that societies are organized, how do you think those things are still driving innovation today? Are they maybe even more powerful than pure scientific discovery?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something worth considering.
Yeah, I think it's a question worth pondering.
Yeah, especially in our modern world.
Yes.
Where it seems like everything is all about science and technology.
Right.
But maybe those basic human needs are still
at the root of it.
Yeah, at the root of it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something for you to think about.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for diving deep with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. Yeah. I always love talking about this stuff.
Me too.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
For another deep dive.
Bye.